Good afternoon, Bhupesh. As always, it's a pleasure to meet you and hear from you all the insights that you have to share with respect to education, with respect to so many great thoughts and philosophical conversations that we have. Welcome to this episode of Thoughtspace.
Thank
And
you, Lokesh. Good afternoon.
yeah, and I'm sure today's session would be very insightful because this is a subject which is very close to the heart of people, particularly people who are deep into learning, both people who are designing learning as well as people who are undergoing learning. This is something which is very, very important when it comes to how should we leverage technology for better learning adoption amongst people. Just to give a brief background, I think Bhupesh has been a career tech entrepreneur. I think it's been 25 years and some great products, some great solutions, starting a university and also starting a tech company which is into bringing a large number of students, governments, and institutions together at the Mooney campus. I think some of the work that he and his team has done is marvelous and kind of one of its kind in the space of edtech. I'm sure this is going to change a lot of things a few years down the line. So thanks for being us again, being with us again, and I look forward to some great insights from you.
Thank you, Lokesh. I'm really glad to be over here. And welcome everybody, those who are joining this virtual talk.
Yep. Okay, so I think let's get to the business. This is a short session. Let me ask you your experiences on. So, first of all, I think it is very important to understand that we are not discussing about psychological deficit or the attention deficit as a subject. We are taking it as given. So, in today's times. The way things are in the social fabric, in the way people approach situations, we know that attention is something that is very, very short and limited, and that is something that is given as a reality. So saying that there is nothing much maybe we can look at it or do about it, we still need to orient people to learn better. We still need to uh, make sure that the learning outcomes that people are carrying are are achieved, and also that learning actually helps and aids the individual. So this is one of the big issues of our times, that learning is not leading into really the real application on the ground. So some of these issues are there, and even if for the youngsters when they actually join the corporate world, it is quite difficult for corporates at times. So you almost have to retrain them and redo the whole education in a way to make them more employable. And this same thing is also true at various levels. So as people grow in their careers, and as people become professionals, in terms of higher and higher level. So given all of that, how do we actually leverage technology and even some other ideas in education that can help a modern learner, both a young learner as well as a corporate learner? What are some of your takes on that?
So, thank you, Lokesh, for setting up a context. And it's good that you have already clarified that we are leaving this attention deficit and hyperactivity area to medical professionals. That's not what we are trying to discuss over here.
True. Yes.
We are trying to discuss something which is attention towards learning, whether it is during the online mode or whether it is in the physical classroom or training setup.
Right.
And if candidates are not able to pay attention, that also leads to the poor learning outcome. And
Absolutely.
when it leads to poor learning outcome, it is a big disappointment to the instructors, teachers, faculty, whether it is corporate or whether it is academia. And that also leads to a lot of dropout candidate, right?
Yeah.
Like in MOOC, which was supposed to transform the whole education, and fortunately they are transforming as well. one of the reason that people are not able to really maintain their attention for over the course of period. This is one of the reasons. There could be several other reasons which we can really discuss upon. This is one of the reasons why dropout rate is pretty high, which is close to 98% to 99%.
Yeah.
And we did some, even in classroom, we try to really gauge the attention. We use a lot of nudging tactics while you are teaching. Like as a teacher, when I take a class, right, you always ask candidate, okay, will you tell me what we were talking about? What's your opinion? Right. So you actually break
Use logic.
is a modern technique of doing the meditation, opening your eyes, right? So you
Correct.
break that monotony and you ask them, you nudge them, and that's how you actually try to really draw their attention towards you. You
Hmm.
modulate your voice.
Hmm.
You dance in the class, right? You throw
Yeah.
some joke, right? You ask a student on board to really solve those problems. So these were the techniques, old techniques, which as a teacher, your teachers,
Teachers.
my teachers have used, and now as a teacher, I am using it.
Yeah.
So, and it is very important. If you're not able to engage your students, eventually they will not learn, and the whole purpose of teaching becomes failure.
Yeah.
uh, Now in case of an online media, it becomes very difficult. Like for example, now we are delivering this talk online. We are absolutely in no control of our audience, whether they are watching it or they're switching on Netflix or some news
Correct.
channels and coming back, right? So how do you really gauge the attention? And perhaps technology can really play a role. Technology has shown some roadmap, and we'll certainly talk about that. So attention is one of the most important factor. Other than attention, and what leads to the poor attention, right? So there could be various reasons because of your poor attention. Maybe the topic which you're talking is out of context.
Correct. Yes.
Maybe if we are delivering this talk to some 10th standard student, they will find that this is out of context. It is irrelevant for them, right? Why they are
Irrelevant.
watching this session, which is talking about attention deficit issues and how we can really AI can really resolve. The
Yeah.
other issue could be motivation, right?
Hmm.
What is the motivation behind this, right? So I always say there has to be purpose in terms of learning and gaining the knowledge. And the purpose, essentially, if we really see the framework, the purpose of learning and knowledge acquisition is essentially to take right decisions,
Yeah.
right? Or optimize decisions. And
Absolutely.
reasons why you want to take a decision, again, this is a decision without a purpose is also a bad, right? So you
Correct.
have a purpose because you want to solve some problem, right?
Hmm.
There
Hmm.
is a goal for that learning, and let me clarify it with example. You are learning big data
Hmm.
because after a month you will be involved into big data project,
Correct.
or you're already thrown into a big data project and you have no understanding as a developer about big data, right? So it
Hmm.
is your goal that you have to deliver that project, and to deliver that project you need to acquire that knowledge,
Knowledge. Correct.
right? And now let's imagine, Lokesh, that you start delivering sessions. Since you're expert on HR and leadership, you start giving him lecture about leadership,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
You lead says that yes, I brought you one of the best expert on leadership, Lokesh. Why don't you watch his lecture, right?
Yeah.
Now, he does not require a leadership session at this point of time. He requires something to save his job and to deliver that project. And
Correct.
that's where
Absolutely.
the context, that's where the motivation, that's where the purpose, that's where the goal, right?
Hmm.
So that's the one part, right? Which actually motivates all of us. We need a motivation why we are doing some task. That's one
Correct.
part. The second part is, of course, the methodology, pedagogy,
Hmm.
how
Hmm.
you are disseminating that knowledge,
Right.
right? That's the second part. And that's where we can really talk about the quality of the content, whether it is a hybrid, whether it is online, whether it is a small micro learning sessions, or it is a 3 hour session, whether you're using graphics, whether you're using in person or voiceover. So there's a lot of whole area is there, and a lot of research is going on, right?
Yes.
So broadly, it is basically the goal, the purpose of knowledge seeking,
Context. Yeah.
the pedagogy, and the of course third, which is very important, which is the trust, right? Let's say, for example, uh, you have expertise on leadership, right? And you have some expertise on HR. Now, both of us we visit, and we start addressing to audience, right? We
Hmm.
gather the student, and all of a sudden I start talking about HR policies, which I have no experience, no relevance, neither I have a credibility. Now, so the trust between the learner and the person
The one
who
who's
delivers
teaching.
the knowledge will not be established,
Correct.
and
Correct.
again their attention will go down,
Hmm.
right? So trust is also very important factor. So
Yeah.
broadly, we can categorize 3 or 4 factors, and we can really subcategorize a lot of parameters, right?
Correct. I think.
And these things play a major role in terms of whether the person is attentive in the knowledge acquisition process, learning process, or not.
Hmm. I think this is excellent. I think I already created that in my mind. Context, content, and credibility.
Right, right.
I think these three are very, very important and I think you have absolutely, summarized it well. That how do we actually bring learning to the individuals, which is full of context, which is in line with their purpose and goal, content, which is of great quality, which is exactly attacking to the context, and
Right,
coming from a credible voice,
right.
which has that subject matter expertise or knowledge, which will solve the problem of the person. I was once such a learner, and you were my mentor. So I don't know how much I was able to learn or execute for the audience. I learned under Bhupesh, and it was a great experience. Of course, it boosted my confidence at a time when I needed it the most. So,
But
those were
I feel really proud that the learning outcome is good.
because it was full of
Whether
context, content,
attention
and
was there or not, but the learning outcome is in front of me. I really
and
feel proud.
yeah. So yeah. So those days, and I think. A lot of great motivation from that time, which kind of put me back on track. And I think I was a model learner at that time, look, wanting to know various things and don't not knowing what exactly to do. In the kind of context it was then. Yeah. So I think with that, the other thing is when we talk about these aspects. Of course, there's a plethora of content which is available online these days, and we know that the adoption is, and you said that, is so much lower. And just like in Netflix or like a YouTube, you're almost bombarded with content,
Right.
and uh, it- and even with Google sometimes you're bombarded with so much of content when you're actually typing the query. You don't know which one is more credible than the other.
Right.
You don't know which one you should choose or not choose. And in the context, you always have short time, both from a
Right.
purpose or goal perspective, as well as and that is both for the young learner as well as the corporate learner, that you have short time and you have to find out the right relevant content which will help you,
Right.
and then you utilize it. uh, Typically your longer courses happens once, so you do graduation or post graduation only once. Even if you are doing certain courses on a regular basis, you will do a major education only once in 2 years or 3 years. Even as a corporate learner, it's not
Right.
that something is not something that you will do continuously. So the learning that is happening is almost on a day-to-day basis, with respect to the context that you rightly said. Here, particularly organizations, and I'm sure institutions are also struggling how to get the relevant content in that small space and serve to the user, so that they can
Right.
actually utilize it, because utilization rates we know is very, very limited.
Right.
And and as we were discussing in an earlier conversation, it's like Bollywood movies, thousands
Right.
of them being produced, but only one or two is what we know at any given point in time. So how do we do that? That how do we bring that one or two relevant aspect, content aspects, or through the help of AI to the model learner at the time of need? What are your thoughts and some of the research tells us today?
So there are two aspects to that. One is like a in terms of like when we are talking about internet-based learning, right?
Yeah,
MOOC-based learning, wherein you have content information overflow syndrome. You have more content, you have more choices, and you struggle with that. You spend hours and hours in terms of really finding out which content you should really absorb, right? Which content
yeah,
you will act upon. Can really help you. AI can really, even if you go on, say, YouTube and you start watching certain kind of a content, right? YouTube starts recommending you similar kind of contents.
correct.
Let's
It does.
say you're watching something related to leadership, you will start getting
More and
recommendations
more.
about leadership talks, right? And how Google or YouTube does that, they at back end they use artificial intelligence, machine learning models.
I think we lost you for a bit there.
Yeah. uh, can you hear me, Lokesh?
Yes, I can hear you now. Yes.
Okay, so your video is flickering.
Yes, we lost you for a while. I think now it should be okay. The signal seems to be okay now. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think there was an issue.
Signal, yeah, signal went off for a while. Yes.
So for content recommendation, companies, whether it is a Netflix, whether it is a Google, whether it's a YouTube, they all are using machine learning and deep learning in a big way,
Correct.
which is like a subset of artificial intelligence to give
Yes.
you recommendation. It's just like your mother, right? So your mother knows your behavior, what you like and what you don't like. So even if you don't open your mouth, your mother will know you're not
Right.
like this kind of food, and she will recommend you some other food. And this is essentially based on the data which your mother has collected even before you were born, right? So whether it is your mother, your siblings, your life partner, your friends, they have collected a lot of data about you. So they know your baseline behavior, and they know if you're the moment you put the food in your mouth, your baseline behavior changes. And
Correct.
they're able to really detect whether you really like food or not, even if you try to lie, right? So they can really catch that. They know what you like and what you don't like. Now, thanks to MOOC platforms and a lot of digitization which has happened, now these learners, they're leaving their digital footprints, whether it is a
Correct.
MOOC platform or learning management system, right? Even at our institution, we're using LMS, and my company, MUni Campus, we have our learning management system. We use learners analytics, so we collect a lot of data.
Yeah.
And so what data typically you get? You get the data about how much time candidate is watching videos, what content he's liking, what time he is watching. So this is, we analyze the entire click stream data,
Yeah.
and based on that data we are able to really model candidates learning, right? That and based on that you can start recommending candidates about the various kind of content, whether you would like to recommend him the video contents or PDF content or what content, right? That's a content recommendation. And
Content recommendation.
content
Yes.
recommendation can somewhat solve the problem of retaining the attention, but this does not completely resolve the issue of your learning outcome. And
Right.
there have been a lot of models which have been, so there is a new field which is emerging, which is called knowledge tracing, right?
Knowledge tracing. Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
in knowledge tracing, you're using deep knowledge tracing (DKT), and then you are using BKT, which is Bayesian knowledge tracing. These are the essential models, algorithms for uh, building up a learning model about a learner, right?
Yeah.
How learner will respond to the next question and next learning, right? What content you should offer within one particular subject,
Hmm.
right? And these models are helping to solve very age old problem, which is adaptive personalization,
Okay.
personalized learning, right? So personalized learning is something, so traditionally, if you really see, and you must have seen a lot of cartoons which is moving
Yes.
around, wherein the tiger is also trying to climb a tree as well as a monkey, and that's what
Yes.
the education system is. Though it is easy to criticize the traditional education system, but let's also understand, drastically changing the traditional classroom education system is not possible,
Not possible.
right? Because of the resources constraint, and it is not possible to really design the curriculum for every student, right?
Hmm.
And that education is fairly doing well, despite of the fact we criticize that, and within that, each individual teacher is trying to really customize the learning path for each their student, if the class
Yes.
size is typically 20 or 30, right, in
Correct.
their limited sphere, right? And they're trying to really nudge candidates and try to really gain the mastery. So let's leave the classroom part, and if we really come on this MOOC platform, wherein and MOOC platform, you have two kind of learning, which is canned recorded content, and the other one is hybrid, wherein the way we, you and me talking.
Yes.
Canned recorded content, where millions of students are there learning. Now there is no way you can really control. These are the models which are helping, right?
Hmm.
Now, since we have lot of data and we have lot of content, so at one end you have the learners, millions of learners, and there are billions of records, how and when and which device and what time and what content. So you have tons of data, and there you can really create the individual model about each individual being. And you
Hmm.
have of content, right? And you have a learning object, right? And now how do you really map all these three things, right? And when
Yes.
I'm saying learning objects, so I am also saying learning objects are also customizable. Your learning object about leadership, learning leadership theory is different, and my learning objective could be different. My learning objective could be to give a lecture, and your learning objective could be to learn leadership theory and become a good leader and lead the organization. These could be two
Correct.
different objectives, and
Yes.
based on that, the content mapping and the curriculum will also change,
Hmm.
and the curriculum path, which is a customized curriculum, will also be designed, which is individually not possible.
Hmm.
Machine capable of doing that,
Machine is capable of doing that. Correct.
right?
Yeah.
And there has been a lot of work which is being done. I have not seen any idealistic work which has come across, but there are a lot of good companies like Sana Lab. They are doing this kind of work in Sweden. Well, every company, Muni, we are doing a lot of work in that area.
Hmm.
Google is trying to really do, Microsoft is trying to really do, a lot of companies, Baidu is trying to really do, but all are doing it in a limited sphere, right?
Correct.
The work which is I am seeing more is about personalization of content, content recommendation, right? But not end to end, which is learning outcome mapping with the goals and the content and those. That will be the ideal scenario, and I feel the research is going on in those directions, and a lot of research need to be done so that we can liberate humans from unnecessary learning,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because there is too much of learning, right? Even if
Hmm.
you see around, uh, and the employability is also challenged. Engineers, the
Correct.
employability is hardly 3% or 4%, which is poorest across the world, right?
Absolutely.
And because and one of the fundamental reasons we are teaching something to somebody who's not interested in that.
Correct. Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
a whole lot of mismatches there, and I think this is a great area to solve, and that's where Now, rest part of my life, I am trying to really devote that. Yes, let us
Yeah.
try to really connect these talks, because philosophically talking these things is very interesting. But how you're going to really accomplish, if 10 or 15 students, which is good, but how you're going to really accomplish for, say, millions and billions of students? And these are
Correct.
not only students. You and me also belongs to that category. So today we
We
are
are
also
also
learning, right?
correct.
So we also suffer with the same problem what a 20-year-old guy suffers.
Yeah, same,
Perhaps we
absolutely.
have the better clarity in terms of our
Mhm.
goals and our objectives.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
AI is the only way which I feel that AI can really remove the human biases and can offer a data-driven a roadmap in terms of whether it is a personalized adaptive learning or a content recommendation, or eventually solving the issues of learning outcome, or managing this attention deficit, because attention deficit alone cannot be handled. It is a
Correct.
complex issue,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So if
I
you
think.
try to take model attention deficit, you will have these all multiple parameters if you're trying to really build the mathematical model.
Yeah, and I think sometimes this attention deficit is also something which you use to protect or save that whatever your approach you're using is correct, but when the individual is wrong, or
Right.
maybe we are wrong in the way we are serving the individual, what kind of content is required at this time of need, and I think the other thing is definitely so personalized adaptive learning, knowledge tracing. I think these are some of the very important things, and AI is slowly solving. I think one of the biggest insights, as you spoke about it, is the fact that you're using to customize the program itself. You say on a continuous in a continuous journey format, it is actually modifying itself with the way the user is using it. So in a way, that curriculum is not the same for everybody.
Hmm, hmm, hmm,
Everybody's own curriculum based on their own
hmm,
interests, their own goals, and their own level of learning at that particular incidence. One thing I think a lot of times we hear that we don't need teachers and people can learn on their own,
hmm,
right?
hmm, hmm.
But can AI really replace teachers? I don't know. I may be biased that teachers are very important to bring things together, and AI is not really the teacher, but a tool for the teacher and for the student to bring content which is more personalized and which is more useful for the individual based on the context, as you earlier spoke about. So teacher still plays a very important role somewhere. Maybe the incidences are lesser, I don't know. I mean, your views on that.
So let's understand where another human is required in another human's life, right?
Yes.
It's not only limited to learning. So let's say for last 1.5 years, 2 years, we are delivering sessions online. As a
Correct.
teacher, I'm sick and tired. As a student, the students are sick and tired and they want to come to campus.
Correct.
Let's also understand that learning is not only the knowledge acquisition process, right? Knowledge acquisition for what? Knowledge acquisition for making decisions, and making decisions to accomplish a task or goal, right? Decisions on what scenario you want to take a decision. You want to take a decision sitting in a closed room or a jungle or a Himalaya, right?
Right.
That to take a decision. So you will take a decision when you are surrounded with human beings, and for whom you will take a decision. You will take a
Mm.
decision about the humans, and now since cyber and machine world and human are interacting, you will take decisions about the machines as well. So you require interaction with the human, and human needs motivation from other human. A robot
Absolutely.
or humanoid cannot motivate you,
Mm.
right?
True. True.
No matter what level of personalization and no matter what kind of voice modulation you can really do. So now, deep fake, these technologies can really fake your voice. So you can take a teacher's voice and you can really artificially create the voice over the entire lecture, right? And you
Correct.
can create the persona of artificial teacher, right? Even the teacher doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But will that artificial agent will be able to motivate the human?
Mm.
Because in human learning, it is very important that motivation throughout my life, in which I always say, you are not able to achieve your goal. It is not because of your competency and lack of knowledge or skill.
Mm.
If some psychological obstacle, is some psychological barrier is stopping you to do that, and that
Yes.
machine and no amount of knowledge dissemination can solve that. right?
Correct.
A,
Correct.
a hug or pat on your back by a teacher can solve that,
Absolutely.
and which a humanoid cannot really do.
Cannot do that.
So typically, technology-based learning, which individual need to really accomplish a task, that you can really achieve through e-learning or modules.
Hmm.
But while early age of students' life, which is undergrad, which is school, they require a lot of learning, which happens not from the book, from talking to each other. That social learning, social interaction is very important,
Absolutely.
and that you cannot really eliminate. And for that, schools, universities, colleges, teachers are needed.
Yeah, in fact, I would like to add the same for the corporate, because humans who grow up are the same who were children 20 years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah. Mm,
So there's a lot of this conversation which happens in corporate learning, that
mm,
now that we have all
mm,
these this content available, learning can happen
mm,
even without the help of anybody who is facilitating. But I think that's a farce.
mm, mm,
It's social learning and interactions, and also the expert, in the sense the master talking about an art, is a very very important component of the learning. And that's equally true, as true for the universities and colleges and schools, is also true for corporate learning. And some of the conversation which is happening around, now we can spend a few dollars per person, and all the learning is there online, and people can come and watch it, but people don't. And I think MIT experience on MOOCs,
mm,
I mean, even though the whole content is there, the users are hardly any, right? So
mm,
so that's the point. I think even in corporate learning, that human touch element is very very critical, and uh, without that the learning cannot be complete. So I would actually say, and I'll seek your input on that, learning can actually not happen without a teacher.
Yeah, so let's also realize and appreciate the constraints of resources, which is money and other stuff. So every corporate is trying to really cut down the budget.
Yes.
The quality teachers are not there, so you can't really have millions of good quality of teachers. So
Correct.
if you have to really use one teacher to teach millions of people, perhaps can recorded content and hybrid learning, like we are using a lot of hybrid learning in our executive education, where some lectures, like 40-60% of the lectures are delivered live, and 30-40% lectures are recorded, can recorded,
Correct.
which does not have any human touch, right?
Hmm.
So that way you are trying to really optimize the resources.
Correct.
But let's also realize that in technology learning, functional learning, these MOOC platforms have significantly played a huge role.
Absolutely. And some of these skills areas, of course, yes, absolutely, and they have played a big role. And that is where the journey is based on knowledge tracing, etc., is something which is very very useful. Yeah, so that was more from a philosophical point, that our teachers still necessary.
Not philosophical. Like
Yeah.
if you see, Lokesh, I always say philosophy is actually is a science, right? We call it
Absolutely.
philosophy because we are not able to really explain it. Like every day in business, you say that this is a gut. Gut is
Yeah.
something which is not a linear decision making, right?
Correct.
So when you
Yes.
say gut, it means you are incapable of explaining the complex decision making process to somebody, because
Correct.
that decision making is too complex and there are millions of parameters which are there. So I
They're
can't
going
explain
into
it to
it.
you,
Yeah.
and neither you can't understand. So you will say, okay, this is a gut feeling. No, it is not gut feeling. It is very complex model, which has got a lot of inputs, experience inputs, and on which you are taking. So philosophy is very complex science. Perhaps you are not able to really decode it.
Yes, absolutely. It's a complex decision making process.
Yeah.
Great. I think we are short on time now. We have already overshot. Any last minute insights with your huge experience in learning and educating?
So I think
With
I have
respect to
very
the
limited experience. Still, I am learning, right? So,
yes,
so
I
the
think that's a
idea
good.
is that today only I was talking to one of the faculty that again repeating the same thing, that all these years we focus on one part, which is teaching and learning, but there were two part which were missing, and that part where why we are learning and why we are teaching. If this learning and teaching cannot enhance the quality of life, of you and others, right? If you do
Yes,
MBA, you will enhance your quality of life, but how
absolutely
about others, right? If you're learning technology, if you're learning AI and data science, if you cannot transform the life of others, if you cannot solve some problem of traffic or unemployment or all those kind of, or cancer detection, that learning and knowledge acquisition is useless, right?
correct.
And that is where the goal setting, the higher objectives of learning is very important, which will take you a longer. Otherwise, these are the short peripheral issues which you are trying to really solve, right?
Absolutely, I think
Attention
yes.
deficit, right? Content recommendation. But the biggest thing is if you have the higher level of objective, that yes, you want to build a dam because this dam will really solve and save the life of thousands of farmers, right? And
Hmm.
eradicate the poverty. Even if you
Correct,
have no resources to learn and you don't know how to build a dam, right? In olden days, there was no move, there were no faculties, but still people have built roads and highways and they built
correct.
plants, planes,
Yes,
and they have done what not, right? Because
correct.
they were motivated. They have the higher level of objective other than just earning the bread and butter for themselves.
Yes,
So these level of higher levels of objective in learning and teaching need to be there, whether it is in the corporate context or whether it in the academia.
I think that brings us back to the first thing: context, purpose, goal. And unless otherwise, we are solving a wrong problem. If we are solving for attention deficit, we are actually solving a wrong problem. What the right problem is, what is the purpose of learning? And if we
And
are
no
able to
amount of
see
AI
that,
can really solve that.
correct. Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
It's a
So thanks.
wonderful talking to you, Lokesh.
Yeah,
I'm really thrilled.
thank you so much. Yeah, thanks. And we will come back with some more. I know there are lots of areas that you have great knowledge on, and I'm sure in some format we'll be back again.
Thank you. Thank you, Lokesh. Thank you,
Thank you
everybody.
so
Thank
much.
you so much for joining the session. Okay. Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks. Bye bye.